The auction hall was cold, filled with whispers and cruel laughter. Lights above flickered, casting long shadows across the cages. Inside one of those small cages sat a silent alien girl. Her knees pulled to her chest. She had soft lavender skin, glowing faintly under the lights, and silver eyes that looked empty. Her head was down, her body weak. A tag hung from her cage, written in 3 common galactic languages: alien female, fertility defective, not suitable for mating, minimum bid, 1 credit. People passed by, some sneering, some spitting. She's broken, one alien scoffed. Why would anyone waste credits on that thing? Another laughed. You'd get more use from a mop. The girl didn't move, didn't react. She had learned long ago that silence hurt less than hope. In the back of the room, a human man stood quietly. His name was Jack Morrison, a retired engineer, living alone on a quiet planet near the edge of the system. He had come here by mistake, looking for spare ship parts in the market outside. But the crowd led him to the auction hall. He was about to turn away when he saw her. There was something in her stillness. Something in the way she stared at the ground, not out of fear, but as if she had nothing left inside her. She didn't cry, she didn't beg, she didn't even look up. Jack's chest tightened. He didn't understand why, but he stepped forward. Starting bid, 1 credit, the announcer shouted, already smirking. No one? She's good for house cleaning, maybe. Laughter echoed again. No use as a breeder. Just a defective orphan, someone whispered. Sold as trash from her homeworld, another added. Jack raised a single hand. 1 credit, he said. Calmly, the hall went silent for a moment, then erupted with mocking cheers. Human wants the broken toy. Maybe humans like defective things. The announcer hit the button. Sold. To the human. The cage door opened slowly, but the girl didn't move. 2 guards pushed her forward, and she stumbled to her feet. She walked with her head low, dragging her bare feet across the cold floor. Jack waited, unsure of what to say. When she reached him, she looked up. Just for a second, her silver eyes met his, and then quickly looked away. He noticed her ribs through her thin skin, the way she shivered without thinking. He took off his jacket and placed it gently on her shoulders. She flinched hard, expecting a strike, but he only said, "Let's go." They walked through the crowd, still full of murmurs and cruel stares. Jack ignored them, guiding her outside toward his small transport vehicle. The sunlight hit her for the first time in days, maybe weeks, and she blinked fast. She looked at the sky like she didn't remember it being that blue. Inside the vehicle, Jack gave her a sealed bottle of water and a protein bar. She stared at them like they were strange tools, not food. He opened the bar for her, placed it in her hand, and said softly, "Eat." She sniffed it first, then took a slow, careful bite. Her lips trembled, and Jack could swear he saw a tear forming in one eye, but she blinked it away and kept eating. They didn't speak on the way home. She sat still, holding the half-eaten bar in her lap. Jack tried not to look too much, didn't want to scare her, but his mind kept asking, who labeled her defective? Why did she look like she didn't believe she was real anymore? Back at his house, a quiet cabin hidden near the forest trees, he guided her to the front door. She hesitated, not believing she was allowed to enter freely. Jack opened it, stood aside, and said, "It's okay, you can come in." She stepped slowly, each movement full of doubt, like she expected pain to follow comfort. He pointed to a room. "That's yours." Her head snapped toward him, her eyes wide. "Mine?" she whispered, her voice hoarse from not speaking for so long. Jack nodded. "Yes, no cages here, no orders." She stood in the doorway of the room, simple bed, clean blanket, soft light. Her hands touched the pillow like it was some kind of treasure. Then she sat on the edge of the bed, silently staring at the floor. Jack left her there with gentle words. "Sleep if you can. Food's on the table when you're ready." That night, as Jack sat alone in the living room, sipping tea, he heard soft footsteps. She walked out, wrapped in a blanket, and sat quietly. Across from him, she didn't speak, didn't eat. Just sat there, eyes half closed. Then slowly, her head leaned to the side and rested on the edge of the couch near him. Not touching, just close enough to feel a presence. And in that moment, Jack understood something. She didn't need saving. She just needed someone who didn't throw her away. The next morning, the alien girl woke up in a soft bed, wrapped in a warm blanket. She blinked slowly, her silver eyes scanning the small room. Sunlight came through the open window. Birds sang somewhere in the trees outside. She didn't remember the last time she had heard a bird's song. For a moment, she thought it was a dream, and she would wake up back in the cage, cold and forgotten. She sat up and touched the edge of the blanket. It was soft, not rough like the rags they used to throw at her. She looked around. There was a clean floor, a lamp, and a tiny bookshelf with some human books. Nothing sharp, nothing chained. Still, her body remained tense, her mind trapped in old fear. She stepped out of the room, slowly and carefully. Her bare feet made soft sounds on the wooden floor. The smell of warm food reached her nose, something strange but pleasant. Jack stood in the kitchen, cooking eggs and toasting bread. He turned and smiled gently when he saw her. "Morning," he said, holding a plate out. "You hungry?" She didn't answer, but her eyes locked onto the food. Jack placed the plate on the table and stepped away, giving her space. She sat down, picked up the fork awkwardly, and started eating, slow, unsure. Every bite tasted unreal, like food made for someone who mattered. Jack didn't ask questions, didn't demand anything. He just said, "You don't have to be scared here." She stopped chewing, not sure if she believed him. Kindness was unfamiliar, like an alien language she had never learned. After breakfast, Jack gave her clean clothes, a simple shirt and soft pants folded neatly. She stared at them for a long time before finally reaching out. In the bathroom, she stood in front of the mirror and touched her reflection. The bruises on her skin were fading, but inside, the hurt still lived. She changed clothes and looked down at herself. She didn't look like a servant anymore, or a tool. Later that day, Jack showed her around the house. "This is the living room," he said, pointing to a couch and a fireplace. "That's the workshop," he added, showing the room filled with tools and broken machine parts. She followed him silently, listening, memorizing the layout like someone preparing for escape. He noticed the way her eyes moved, calculating, nervous, and didn't say anything. He just let her explore, without pressure. In the evening, she sat outside on the porch, watching the sky turn orange. Birds flew across the trees, and strange insects made music in the air. Jack came out with 2 mugs, one for himself and one he placed next to her. She didn't drink it, but she appreciated the gesture. For a long time they sat in silence. Then she whispered, "Why did you bring me here?" Jack looked at her with soft eyes, because no one else did. She frowned, not understanding. "But I'm defective," she said, her voice quiet and flat. Jack shook his head. "No one is defective just because someone says so." She stared at him like he was mad. "Everyone laughed at you," she said, her words sharp with confusion. "I didn't care," he replied with a shrug. "I saw someone who needed a home." She didn't speak after that. The silence returned. But this time, it wasn't heavy, it was thoughtful that night. She wandered the house again, unable to sleep. She saw Jack sitting on the floor beside a box, looking at an old photo. He didn't see her watching. In the picture was a little girl, human, laughing in the sunlight. Next to her was Jack, younger, smiling wide. But now his eyes looked hollow, as if the picture hurt him more than anything. He wiped his eyes and closed the box, whispering, "Good night, sweetheart." The alien girl stepped back, unnoticed. Back in her room, she sat on the bed and stared. At the ceiling, she had seen many masters, many owners, but none of them ever cried for someone else. None of them ever gave their coat to a stranger, or food without asking for something in return. That night, for the first time in years, she Dreamed, not of chains, not of pain, but of a warm sun, a quiet porch, and a voice that said, "You're not broken." Days passed quietly. The alien girl, still without a name, began to move differently. She walked around the house more freely, but always kept her eyes low. She watched Jack from a distance, how he made tea, fixed broken things, or fed the birds near the porch. He didn't force her to talk, didn't ask her questions. Instead, he let her exist, something no one had ever allowed her to do. She started copying little things. When Jack watered the plants, she'd do the same the next day. When he cleaned a corner of the workshop, she'd try wiping the table later. One afternoon, he found his tools rearranged neatly, not perfectly, but carefully. He didn't mention it, but smiled quietly. She noticed that smile from the hallway, and for the first time, her lips twitched slightly, like they were trying to learn what a smile was. She never entered Jack's bedroom, never opened closed doors. She treated space like permission. And permission was something she never assumed. But in her room, she began placing little things she found: a round stone, a fallen feather, a dried leaf that looked like lace. Her empty room slowly became hers. One evening, Jack left a plate of food and a small notebook with a pen beside it. She stared at it, confused. There was a message on the first page, written in neat human handwriting. "You don't have to talk, but if you want to say something, you can write it here." She held the pen, unsure what to do. Later that night, she opened the notebook and drew a tiny star in the corner. Nothing else. Jack didn't comment, didn't question. But when she turned the page the next day, there was a drawing of a moon beside her star. The next evening, something happened. She accidentally broke a plate while washing dishes. The sound of it shattering hit her like thunder. Her body froze, breath stopped, and her eyes widened in terror. Memories flooded in, of beatings, shouts, pain for the smallest mistake. Her hands shook violently, and she stepped back, ready to be punished. Jack came running from the other room, saw the broken plate, and saw her face. He didn't say anything, just slowly walked over and knelt down, picking up the pieces. "It's just a plate," he said gently. "I've broken worse." She stared at him, confused, as he tossed the pieces in a bin and brought her a towel for her shaking hands. No slap, no shout, no punishment, only kindness. That night, she sat on the couch across from him, staring at the fire. The room was quiet, just the sound of crackling wood. Then, without warning, she spoke. "Why did you choose me?" she asked, her voice rough and slow, like it hadn't been used in years. Jack looked up, surprised but calm. "I saw someone who needed a home," he said simply. "I'm not useful," she whispered. "Not for breeding, not for work." Jack's face turned serious. "You're not a tool," he said. "You're a person, and you don't have to earn your right to exist." She looked down at her hands. "No one ever said that before." He nodded slowly. Maybe they didn't know better. Silence fell again, but it was different this time. Warmer, softer. He didn't push her for more words. And she didn't run away after speaking. She stayed, watching the fire, her heart beating differently, like it was learning a new rhythm. In the following days, her voice came more often. Short words, simple questions, quiet thoughts. "What's this flower called? Why do birds sing at dawn? Do you ever miss someone you can't see anymore?" Jack answered every time, sometimes with a smile, sometimes with a story. One afternoon, he told her about his daughter, Lily, who had died in an accident years ago. "She was just a little older than you when I lost her," he said, holding a photo. She loved painting stars on the walls. The alien girl stared at the picture. Lily had bright eyes and a messy smile. "I'm not her," she whispered. "I know," Jack said. "And I don't want you to be. I just want you to be you." That night, she took the notebook again and wrote something new. 3 small words, shaky but clear. "Thank you, human." When Jack saw it, he wrote one thing in reply. "You can call me Jack." She stared at the name for a long time. her fingers tracing the letters. Then slowly, she smiled. Not fully, not perfectly, but real. It was the first time anyone had ever given her a name for someone to trust. Not a master, not an owner, just Jack, and from that moment, the house didn't feel like a cage anymore. It started to feel like something else, something she didn't yet have a word for, but maybe soon she would. The sun was bright the next day, shining through the windows as birds chirped outside. The alien girl, now a little more alive, stood at the table watching Jack cook. She didn't ask for food anymore. She just came, quietly, like she was learning she belonged. She didn't wear the same rags from the auction. Now she wore soft human clothes, folded and chosen with care, and even though she still flinched sometimes, her eyes were clearer, more focused. She had started to live, not just survive. Jack was humming a song from Earth, something slow and peaceful. She tilted her head and asked, "Is that music from your planet?" He nodded. "Yeah, old song, reminds me of home." She didn't answer, but her toes tapped softly on the floor, almost in rhythm. It was the first time she had responded to music, and Jack noticed it with a quiet smile. Later that day, Jack brought out a small scanner, an old medical device used to check vitals and scan for infection. He pointed at the device and said, "It's just to make sure you're healthy." She froze, fear washing over her face like a wave. "Is it going to decide what I'm good for?" she asked, her voice tense. Jack shook his head gently. "No, nothing like that. It's just to check if your body needs help, food, medicine, things like that." She sat down slowly, nervously, letting the scanner hum and blink as it read her vitals. Jack looked at the screen and frowned. He tapped a few buttons, then blinked again. "That's strange," he muttered. Her heart raced. "What is it?" Jack glanced at her, confused but calm. "Your file said you were infertile. But this scan shows something else entirely." Her whole body stiffened. "What does it show?" Jack looked carefully at the data, then sat down across from her. "It shows that you're not infertile," he said slowly. "Your body just works differently. Not broken, just misunderstood." She didn't know what to say. All her life, she had been called defective, sold cheap, treated like garbage. Because of that one word, infertile. Now this human, this stranger, told her that it wasn't true, that her body was normal, just different. Her hands trembled. Not from fear, but from something else. Anger, confusion, and a strange kind of relief she had never felt before. Jack leaned back and sighed. "Maybe they didn't bother to learn how your species works," he said. "Maybe they didn't care." She nodded slowly. "They just wanted an excuse to throw me away." Jack didn't argue. He knew cruelty often came from ignorance, but also from greed. Later, she went to her room and sat on the bed in silence. Her thoughts felt heavy, her mind running in all directions. She remembered the auction house, the mocking voices, the stares. She remembered being told she was worthless, but now she knew they were wrong, all of them. She stared at her reflection in the window. "I'm not broken," she whispered to herself, just to hear the words out loud. They felt strange, but beautiful. Like tasting water after years of thirst. That night, she walked outside under the stars. Jack was sitting on the porch, sipping tea. She sat beside him, pulling the blanket around her shoulders. "I want to stay," she said quietly, "even if I can't give you anything." Jack turned toward her, surprised. "You don't have to give me anything," he said. "You already have." She tilted her head, confused. "What have I given you?" Jack looked up at the stars, his voice soft. "Peace. Company. A reason to feel something again." For a while, neither of them spoke. The night breeze moved gently through the trees. She looked at him and asked, "Did you ever want another child?" Jack hesitated, then nodded slowly. "I did," he said, "but not to replace the one I lost." She nodded too, understanding more than she expected. "I'm not her," she said. Jack smiled faintly. "And you don't have to be." Suddenly, a strange light appeared in the sky, blinking red and white. It moved too fast to be a bird or a human aircraft. Jack stood up quickly, his eyes narrowing. "That's not normal," he said. The alien girl stood too, her heart racing. She felt something cold rise inside her chest. "I think someone's looking for me," she whispered. Jack looked at her sharply. "Why would someone be looking now?" "I don't know," she said. "But they never come for defective girls, unless they lied," Jack finished for her. The realization hit them both at once. Someone knew she wasn't defective, and now they wanted her back, but she didn't want to go, not back to cages, not back to silence. This place, this human, this quiet life was hers now, and she would not let anyone take it away. The night after the strange light passed over their home, the alien girl couldn't sleep. She sat by the window in her room, hugging her knees, staring at the moon. Inside her chest was a quiet storm, fear, confusion, but also a strange warmth. She didn't understand it fully, but she knew this place, this house. This man felt safe, and that safety was now under threat. Jack was downstairs, repairing an old drone in the workshop. He hadn't spoken much since the sighting in the sky, but she could tell his mind was busy, thinking, planning, protecting. He had already added new locks to the doors and moved supplies closer to the main room, just in case. The next morning, the girl helped him in the garden. She didn't know much about planting, but she liked touching the soil. The earth felt alive, and when her fingers pressed into the ground, she felt like something was growing inside her too, something soft, something hopeful. Jack handed her a small pot. "Want to try planting your own?" She nodded, kneeling down and gently placing the seed inside. "What will it become?" she asked. Jack smiled. "Let's wait and see." But peace didn't last long. That evening, Jack received a message on his old communication panel. It wasn't from any local channel. It was off-grid, encrypted, and urgent. The words appeared slowly on the screen. "Isolate Subject 43. Do not let her leave. Extraction team en route." Jack stared at the screen, his heart pounding. He had no idea who sent it. Maybe the old slave traders. Maybe someone worse. But one thing was clear. They knew where she was, and they were coming. He shut off the panel quickly and walked to the porch, where the girl was watching birds fly across the sunset sky. He didn't tell her yet. Instead, he sat down beside her and said, "You ever think about your real home?" She looked down, then shook her head. "I don't remember it," she whispered. "I was taken so young. I only remember metal walls, cold floors, and voices that never said my name." Jack clenched his jaw but stayed calm. "Well," he said, "this place is your home now, as long as you want it to be." She nodded slowly, her voice softer. "I do." That night, she laughed in her sleep, a light, short sound, more like a soft giggle. It was the first time Jack had heard her laugh, even unconsciously, but she woke herself up from it and sat up fast, confused and scared. She touched her mouth like it betrayed her. Jack heard the sound from his room and came to check. He saw her sitting up, eyes wide. "You're okay," he said. "It was just a dream." She looked at him, confused. "I laughed." He nodded, smiling gently. "That's allowed here." She didn't answer, just laid back down. But this time she kept her eyes on him until she fell asleep again. It was as if her heart believed safety more when he was near. The next morning, Jack woke early, checking his sensors. Nothing on radar yet, but he knew someone would come soon. He walked out back and checked the hidden tunnel he had built long ago, a path through the woods leading to an old transport shed, just in case they ever needed to run. He cleaned it up quietly, not wanting to scare her yet. Meanwhile, inside the house, she found the notebook again. She opened a fresh page and wrote something new. "I don't want to be taken again." Jack found the message later and added beneath it, "I won't let them." That evening, they sat together, watching the fire again. This had become a new ritual. Warmth, silence, and unspoken connection. She looked at him and asked, "Do you believe broken things can be fixed?" Jack nodded. "Sometimes they just need time or someone to care." She looked into the flames. "I think I'm trying." He replied, "You don't have to try alone anymore." Then she turned to him, voice softer than ever. "What if I'm not broken?" Jack looked at her, eyes steady. "Then you're already stronger than anyone who called you that." She reached for the mug he gave her, holding it with both hands like it held her thoughts. For a few seconds, she sat silently, then asked the question she had buried deep inside for weeks. "Jack, if I'm not broken, would you ever want me to stay? Not as a guest, but as someone real?" Jack blinked, surprised by her courage. He nodded slowly, placing his hand gently over hers. "You already are someone real," he said, "and this is your home if you choose it." She didn't cry, but her eyes grew wet, not from sadness, but from hearing something she never believed she deserved. A choice, and a place that didn't want to use her, only accept her. But outside, in the far woods, a silent drone passed above the trees. It didn't make a sound, but it watched, recorded, and sent a message back to its masters. "Target confirmed. Subject 43 is alive, and not alone." Asterisk. The next morning, Jack woke up to the sound of beeping from his warning sensor. He quickly got dressed, stepped outside, and looked at the small radar screen. There it was, a silent ship hovering just beyond the forest ridge, barely visible through the thick trees. It didn't carry a flag, didn't send a signal, but Jack knew what it meant. They had come inside the house. The girl was sweeping the wooden floor. She didn't notice Jack's tense expression when he walked in. He said nothing yet, only watched her for a moment. How calm she looked, how alive she had become, and now they wanted to take that away. He waited until lunch before speaking. He made her favorite soup and sat across the table, hands folded. "I have to tell you something," he said quietly. She stopped eating, looking at him with alert eyes. "There's a ship not far from here, in the forest." She froze. "Are they here for me?" Jack didn't lie. "Yes." Her fingers gripped the bowl tighter. "What will they do if they take me back?" "I don't know," Jack said, "but I'm not going to let them." They both sat in silence for a long time. Then she whispered, "I don't understand. If I'm not broken, then why did they say I was?" Jack looked serious. "That's what I've been thinking about." He pulled out the medical scanner again, and then his old files, cross-checking her species, her biology, and historical data. Then something appeared, something that made his eyes widen. He called her over. "You need to see this." She stood beside him as he pointed at the screen. "Your species doesn't reproduce like humans or most others," he explained. "You don't have a mating season or heat cycles. Your kind bonds through emotional connection first." She blinked, confused. Most scanners wouldn't detect it, especially if they were only searching for normal fertility markers. He looked at her slowly. "They didn't understand your biology, so they called you defective." She took a step back, like her knees almost gave out. "So it was all a mistake?" Jack's face darkened. "Or a cover-up." He pulled up another report, an old one, hidden deep in galactic records. There it was, a missing child case 15 years ago, from a royal bloodline of a distant alien empire. The picture was blurry but familiar. Soft lavender skin, silver eyes, the same face now standing beside him. "You weren't thrown away," Jack whispered. "You were stolen." She covered her mouth, tears filling her eyes. "I was a royal?" Jack nodded. "Someone wanted you hidden, erased. They sold me as defective so no one would ever look again." She whispered, her voice shaking. She sat down hard on the floor, her mind spinning. All those years of pain, loneliness, rejection, and it wasn't because of her. It was because someone wanted her lost. Jack knelt beside her. "They lied to everyone, including you." She looked at him, her voice breaking. "Then who am I really?" He took her hand gently. "You're still you, just not what they said you were." Suddenly, a loud knock came from the door. 3 heavy bangs, cold and sharp. Jack stood up, his hand instinctively going to the old blaster he kept under the table. "Stay behind me," he said, walking slowly to the door. He opened it just enough to see a tall figure dressed in dark armor. No visible face. "State your name," the figure demanded. "We are here for the girl, Subject 43, Jack." Didn't answer. "She's not a subject," he said calmly. "She's a person. And she's not going with you. We have orders," the figure replied. "She belongs to the Confederation now, classified property." Jack's anger flared. "She belongs to no one." The figure raised a scanner. "We know she's here, and you're harboring a runaway with royal blood." At that moment, the girl stepped beside Jack, her eyes shining not with fear, but fire. "I'm not a subject," she said loudly, her voice clear. "I'm not property, and I'm not going back with you." The armored figure paused, as if surprised she could speak so boldly. "You were listed dead," the figure said flatly. "You are not authorized to exist." Jack stepped forward, blaster aimed. "She exists, and I will defend that with my life." The soldier stepped back, muttering something into a cum. Then silence. Finally, the figure said, "Then you will be marked as hostile, both of you." The girl grabbed Jack's arm tightly, whispering, "They'll come back with more." Jack nodded. "Let them. We'll be ready." That night they reinforced the windows, prepared supplies, and reviewed the escape tunnel again. But even in the middle of danger, the girl stood taller than before. She wasn't just a rescued orphan now. She was someone with a name, a history, and a reason to fight. As she stared at the stars, she whispered to herself, "I was stolen, lied to and sold, but now I know who I am." And in her heart, she felt something new rise. Not fear, not sadness, but strength. Morning came slow, gray clouds rolling across the sky like a warning. Inside the house, Jack and the alien girl finished their last preparations. Extra food was packed, batteries charged. The hidden tunnel uncovered again, but even with the danger so close, the house felt warm, alive. Because something had changed. She was no longer hiding. She had chosen to stay. Not because she was trapped, but because she wanted to belong. Jack made a small breakfast, just toast and tea. She sat across from him, her silver eyes calm, no longer filled with fear. They didn't speak much, but the silence was soft, like two people who didn't need to explain everything anymore. Finally, she looked at him and said, "Do you think they'll stop coming?" Jack sighed. "Not for a while, but we'll handle it together." She nodded slowly. Together. Suddenly, a low rumble echoed through the woods. Outside, the ship had returned. Only this time, it wasn't alone. Two more hovered behind. It dark, silent, threatening, but something was different. A message came through on the outside speaker, a voice not robotic, not cold, but young, emotional, shaking with disbelief. "Princess, is that really you?" The girl froze, her heart pounding. She stepped outside slowly, Jack following behind her with his hand near his blaster. From the ship, a ramp opened, and a woman stepped down, tall, elegant, with the same lavender skin and glowing silver eyes. Her voice cracked. "You were taken from us. We searched for years." Jack stood beside the girl, unsure what was happening. The woman stepped forward, her eyes filled with tears. "You were my daughter," she whispered. "They told me you died." The girl couldn't move, couldn't speak. 100 memories rushed through her mind, none clear, all buried by years of pain. But deep down, something clicked. A scent, a feeling, a sound in the woman's voice. I remember your lullaby," she whispered, eyes wet. The woman fell to her knees, crying. "I sang it every night, hoping the stars would carry it to you." Jack stepped back a little, giving them space. But the girl turned and reached for his hand, holding it tightly. She looked at the woman, her real mother, and said, "I remember now, but I also remember who saved me." She pulled Jack gently beside her. "This human. He gave me a life when no one else did." The woman looked at Jack and bowed her head deeply. "I owe you everything," she said. "You cared for her when the galaxy didn't." Jack smiled gently. "I didn't do it for thanks. I just saw someone who deserved better. Later that evening, inside the house, the girl sat with both of them, her mother and Jack. A decision had to be made. The royal guards were offering to take her back, to restore her name, her place, her future. But she looked at them and said softly, "I don't want to return to a palace where I was once forgotten." She held Jack's hand tighter. "I want to stay here, with him, in this life, where I was seen not as a title, not as property, but as a person." Her mother nodded slowly, tears in her eyes. Then, "I won't take you away," she said, "but I will stay close. I won't lose you again." They hugged for the first time, a hug stolen from them by years of lies, and Jack stood watching quietly, knowing she was healing now. Not because of royalty, but because of love. Weeks passed, and the house was no longer just a quiet cabin. It was a home shared between past and future. She planted her small pot in the garden, the one she had started before. A flower grew, bright and strange, just like her, but strong. She painted her room, read books, and even laughed loudly sometimes. And Jack, the man who once lived alone with silence, now woke every morning to the sound of her voice calling. "Jack, breakfast is ready." One night they sat together on the porch again. Under the stars, she held a cup of warm tea, wrapped in her blanket. Jack watched the sky, and she leaned gently on his shoulder. After a long silence, she asked, "Jack, may I ask you something strange?" He nodded. "Anything." She turned toward him and whispered, "Can I call you Dad?" Jack didn't answer right away. His throat tightened, eyes moist. Then he placed his arm around her and whispered, "You already do." And in that moment, the stars above seemed to glow brighter. Not for royalty, not for victory, but for a girl who was once caged and voiceless, now free, now loved, now home.